is Memphis versus Mizzou. This is going to be an incredible matchup. Memphis heading to Columbia to play Mizzou. This was close to being our game of the week. This game is going to be set in Mizzou Arena on fire by the time it's over. There's going to be plenty of energy, a lot of excitement for Mizzou basketball this season. Their fan base is fully energized about the future of this team. We've talked about Mizzou quite a bit lately. They're a quality team this season, but they've got plenty of question marks going into this year, especially in the front court, as we've pointed out before. But we both still feel like this is a team that's going to be able to push for an NCAA tournament chance this season. And then you turn to the other side of that coin and look at Memphis, one of the best teams in the country outside of the power conferences. Just missed the AP Top 25 this year. They're projected to be in the NCAA tournament as a preseason number 8 seed. They're coming off their game against Jackson State where they won 94-77. But before we get into everything about this team, the most important thing to note here is that Penny Hardaway is missing a few games due to suspension regarding recruiting violations. So Memphis going on the road without their head coach, without some big pieces. But turning to KenPom, Missouri comes in as number 55 team at time of recording and Memphis at 32. KenPom has Memphis losing this game at 77-76 with 50% confidence. That's just about as close as you're going to be able to get in any projection. So, David, what are you thinking on this game?
Insanely tight ball game. If this game was on a neutral court, I still think it would be pretty close, but I think that I would be leaning pretty heavily Memphis. But overall, we got some news today from Adam Mizzou that Connor Vanover not going to be eligible to play basketball because of his participation back in April in the Portsmouth Invitation. I can't remember. It's the NBA professional basketball combine thing that they do out there. I can't remember what the exact name is, but he participated in that back in April and decided to come back to college. So the NCAA says he can't play basketball for a little while. That's not going to help your front court. But I don't think it's particularly the end of the world. I think you got a couple of freshmen that Mizzou can pull out of there. One to come to mind, Jordan Butler. We'll see if he's ready to play some ball. You got Zeus, who started the game tonight for Mizzou, didn't put up any points, but you had Noah Carter. And Noah Carter was one of the guys that you were looking to help this team out a little bit. He had 15 points against UAPB, went 7 from 12 from the field. And then you've also got Pierce and Butler, who got some minutes. As I mentioned, he got 5 points tonight, went 2 for 2 from the field. And then Shaw, he went 3 for 4 on 7 points. Limited minutes for those guys, obviously, but they played a pretty good game. It's going to be the backcourt that needs to do the most of the work for Mizzou coming into this game. It's going to be a challenging one, and one that I hope Mizzou picks their defense up a little bit, because that was a tough defensive performance they played against UAPB, and that it's a little concerning, as you mentioned at the beginning of the show, how they played in that game, especially in the early portion of it. But overall, it is game one, and we did see that last year where Mizzou sweated some games out earlier and their defense improved throughout the course of the year. So maybe some just opening night issues, but I think they're going to have to get ready for this one pretty quickly, because this is going to be a heck of a challenge going into Mizzou Arena.
Yeah, you pointed out some major points there on Mizzou's side, but also kind of looking at Memphis here. They're, like I said, they're missing Coach Hardaway. They are missing a couple of players who we'll get to, and kind of our players to watch here section here in a minute. But some of the big key pieces that people expected to see on the court for Memphis this season are going to be out. So it'll be interesting to see. I feel like with Connor Vanover being out, they're kind of going blow for blow on who they're taking out of this game and what pieces are going to be left to see who can scramble together a W.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one. You can't ask for a better matchup in this game. Obviously, Javon Quinterly is one of the names that I'm excited to know on Memphis, the Alabama transfer. For those of you who are not familiar with Javon Quinterly, but he's coming to Memphis. He made All-American conference preseason player of the year. He should be a big piece of this game. But overall, again, not having Penny and going into a tough environment, this is going to be a crazy, crazy game, and one that's going to be really interesting to watch.
Really. All right, let's turn to our picks. David, who do you have in this one and why?
So if this game was at the Forum or on a neutral court, I would pick Memphis. I would pick Memphis in this game because I think Memphis is one of the better teams, especially like when you talk about best of the rest. Memphis is one of the best of the rest teams. They're going to be competing with Florida Atlantic for a chance to win the American Conference this year, which as a used to be considered a power conference where all the teams jump ship. By some, we call it the Power 7. Now we're all pretty much uniform with calling it Power 6 across people who talk about basketball. But Memphis, very good team in a decent conference, a multi-bid conference. I really like Memphis, but in this scenario, not having Penny, having some issues on your roster that you're having to deal with, and then you're going into a tough environment against a team that's still got a pretty solid backcourt and can put up a lot of points in a hurry and shoot the three ball pretty well. I'm going Mizzou here. And I think this is going to be a heck of a game. I think you might as well just get a coin out and flip it because that's about how tight this thing's going to be. But not having your coach in a tough road environment early in the season, it can spell a loss on your record for Memphis. I think they can bounce back from that later on in the year, but not the best situation for Memphis. We're going to have to, I think the catalyst point's obviously going to be Mizzou's defense and how well Mizzou rebounds the basketball. That's going to be the two biggest catalyst points, but I'm leaning right now. I'm going Mizzou. Give me home court in this situation early in the year. Just that's my confidence right now. It's tough to win on the road, and when you don't have your coach, it's going to be tougher. So I'm going Memphis I'm going Mizzou in this one.
I'm actually going Mizzou here as well. As big as I am on Memphis, I think they're going to have a lot to figure out after, like we mentioned, having some of those vital pieces out that they were expecting, not having a coach and being on the road. I think it's going to be a rough game for at least one set of Tigers here. But like you said, coin toss, it'll be interesting to see. I think, in the end, it's a win, not really all the way lose situation here for Memphis, though, because it's going to be on the road. We've already talked about how Missouri's going to be a pretty good basketball team, so it's not going to hurt their net. So in the long run, going to be a good quality game to kind of have on their resume later in the year.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one. I was just thinking about this, though, too. Another reason that this game's going to stay close, though, also, Memphis is a very experienced basketball team. I believe like the average age of their projected starting five is 23 years old. They're experienced. They know what's going on a basketball court. So even not having their coach, they're still going to be extremely tough to play because those are players who know what's going on in a basketball game and don't need all the same guidance. At least they would have the basketball IQ with experience there. So it's going to be tough. It's going to be still tough, even with Penny being out. But again, I'm going Mizzou. Like, this is going to be a hard-fought basketball game.
Yeah, speaking of experience here, one of the biggest things to note in terms of Memphis's roster, DeAndre Williams, they semi thought he was going to be able to come back, but he was denied his extra year of eligibility. So one of their best players that was expecting to possibly return will not be joining them this season. Would have been the oldest player in the NCAA at 27. So
my wife is 28. So look at this. They could have gone to school together. It's crazy to think he's in college. My wife has been out of college for 5 years.
Makes me feel old, David. We don't have to talk about that.
Go ahead.
But speaking of DeAndre Williams not being able to make the roster, that leaves only two returners in Jaden Hardaway and Malcolm Dandridge. Players that didn't really have as big of an impact last season, but hopefully that experience can help carry over and they'll make a little bit more productivity on the offensive and defensive side for this Memphis team. Another name SEC fans will be familiar with, as you mentioned earlier, Javon Quinterly, averaging 8.1 points, 3.8 assists last season. Another transfer in Caleb Mills from FSU,